Welcome to another episode of Civil Disobedience with Vince. In this episode, we're going to talk about what I consider to be a massive waste of potential and sheer volume of revenue being left on the table by the VI government because it doesn't develop, rather, it neglects its cargo ports. In some cases, I don't think they really know, with the people who are in charge, what they have here. Now, this is a rough overview just to give you a taste, because this topic can be an in-depth topic, so I'm going to shorten it again just to give you a taste. Now, know this, folks. Nearly everything you buy or consume comes in the form of cargo, and much of it comes in containers that comes on cargo ships. But cargo is a red-headed stepchild compared to cruise ships. By and far and away, cargo is just totally neglected compared to cruise ships. The cargo ports are the most critical revenue-centric infrastructure we should be focusing on, in my opinion, here in the U.S. Virgin Islands for many and very good reasons. And I've made a couple of short presentations, one called Concept STT and the other one called Initiative STX, that deal with this issue. And I'll place a link to those videos, those presentations below this on YouTube. In short, though, St. Croix holds the key to economic vitality and it's the sheer dominance in the Caribbean for the United States Virgin Islands. But I'll focus on St. Thomas in this video. Needless to say, our government has chosen leadership in the past and in the present that have zero insight into the future and just how to develop our ports efficiently. Now, as I've said, money is being left on the table, along with potential jobs, careers, and supporting primary, secondary, and tertiary businesses, all of which could contribute to the VI tax base. A tax base, by the way, which is shrinking in the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, and in the face of us wanting to borrow a ton of money to repair the place. Again, though, the focus is just going to be on St. Thomas. And in the background, you'll see my drone cruising around the Crown Bay area so you can get an idea of what the port looks like. Let's start with access. Access for trucks that take cargo, the final leg to its destination, the customer, and dredging for cargo ships to actually access and approach the cargo dock and dock. If you take a close look at the road access for tractor trailers accessing anywhere in the Crown Bay area towards the Crown Bay port, you'll find, like the rest of the VI, the road network is just piss poor. It is just sorry. So, and it's also very difficult to maneuver. And the lighting is, unless some of these terminals, work out their own lighting, it's just not there. It's insufficient. Matter of fact, to the point where it's probably unsafe. In any case, you're going to find that it's very difficult maneuvering tractor trailers down in Crown Bay. And there's also a bad traffic pattern that just contributes to the snarling traffic. And add to that, you're mixing the Crown Bay cruise ship port, mixing passengers, pedestrian passengers, and taxi passengers with large trucks trying to traverse these areas. Makes things very interesting down there. So, there's also, for cargo ship access, the necessary dredging just doesn't happen unless a cruise ship company complains. Now, I've been there where you've had cargo ships come on up to the dock and they've buried the bulbous bow into the mud, and you've had to discharge the cargo forward so that the ship can rise out of the mud and be actually afloat again. This has happened more than once. Why? Because dredging for cargo ships is not a priority compared to cruise ships. And again, all the cargo that's important to all of us comes on these boats. So folks, the approaches and docks usually are not sufficiently dredged to allow cargo vessels to arrive at maximum capable draft. And this is another prime example of the VI government leaving money on the table. Because the cargo ships can't come in at maximum draft, you got to figure, as a rule of thumb, for every foot that a cargo ship cannot bring in draft, that's about $100,000 worth of revenue that's just not on board. Just not on board. Why? Because we don't dredge for cargo ships. Or we'll dredge for a cruise ship. We'll jump up and cruise ship says dredge. Yes, sir. Boom, it's done. Cargo ships? No. But most of the important stuff comes on the cargo ships. Anyway, for any roughly a foot of draft the cargo ship cannot utilize, you lose $100,000 in revenue. But this is an example of what's called punk. Punk is the price of nonconformance, or you can just call it incompetence. Yeah, take your pick. Now, space is another major consideration. In the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, these hurricanes have provided us with a grand opportunity. In my opinion, the VI government has a chance to fix things. As you look at the terminals in Crown Bay, there's a sheer lack of space to operate. And in the middle of all that, there's this middle school. What is a middle school doing in that area? That thing, now, Adelita Cancran Middle School was destroyed. It's time to condemn it and put more cargo space down there. Why? First, you have a chance to build a more efficient cargo port. You have a chance to build roadways in there where the trucks can maneuver safely. Also, you have a chance to have more shipping companies come in, so you have more competition. More competition means lower prices, for us here in the community. Imagine about a 15% drop in prices simply because you got more competition for the stuff that's coming into the ports. But we're not thinking that way. Again, that's just me. So the other thing is the sand fill. The sand fill is a curve. There are plans out there. Back when I worked with tropical shipping, I presented a plan to encompass that entire area and reorganize the entire Crown Bay area into a massive cargo facility. Come to find out, during the presentation, I was stopped because I was told that the company was approached by the VI government about the very same thing. And I've seen plans down at the Port Authority where they were going to fill in from the edge of the tropical dock on the eastern edge all the way over to the radio station, fill all that in, make it a straight line, and dredge it out. But it never happened. Nothing has happened. Again, this was over 10 years ago. No action. Now, more space can allow for both more and more efficient cargo and cargo movement and increased competition. Again, this increased competition serves to lower prices. And if you like paying the prices that we have right now, then do nothing. But this is another example of a lack of decisive action. Punk. Okay? It's called punk. Now, there are other issues out there like chassis and demurrage and detention. These are all concepts, turnaround. It's just things that are not understood by some of the officials that are around here, officials in the legislature, officials at the Port Authority. In all my years working here, I have seen some things that just made me just shake my head. The vast majority of cargo that arrives is typically containerized. You have containerized cargo, you have bulk cargo, and you have what's called break bulk cargo. Those are generally the way cargo arrives. And then there's less than container load, but less than container load generally arrives in a container. So And they arrive in standard units of 20-foot and 40-foot containers. Now there are larger containers, which I don't think should be on our roads. Our roads really can't support those things, but we got them there. So, but in any case, the larger sizes are there, but the most common are 20 and 40 foot. And there are chassis to go along with each container size. They can be removed, so they can be loaded on a ship, or loaded on a truck, or loaded on a train. We have trains don't apply to us. Okay. Now, the chassis, again, can be separated from the container, and the chassis is a key component for that last mile, that delivery from the terminal to the customer. And the aforementioned lack of space at all these terminals contributes to the problem, along with a whole host of other issues that go along with moving cargo here in the Virgin Islands. Now, and again, like many other issues, you got demurrage and detention, you got turnaround, and so on. But as I've said, this is just a brief, rough overview. Now, folks, I've cut my teeth in this business in the Los Angeles, Long Beach, California port areas, in what was, at the time, the largest container ship terminal in the Western Hemisphere. I used to manage that puppy at night before Tropical Shipping recruited me to come home. It was called Global Gateway South. And this is a place back then where I got paid what they called combat pay, $500 a month for working with unionized longshoremen. And locally here, working for Tropical Shipping and Crowley on St. Thomas and St. Croix, I've managed cargo movement throughout the Leeward and Windward Islands, along with locally. And as a rule, on any given week, roughly 55% of all the cargo that hits the dock is transshipment cargo, in St. Thomas anyway. And it's headed to other parts of the Caribbean. So I know a couple of things about this topic. I've lived it. I also specialized in operations as a naval officer. So I have an idea of how to make things go. Now, moving from California back home to the VI was like going from working with Star Wars technology to the Flintstones. I mean, quite literally. And that being said, we have a long way to go. But while the potential is there to make the VI something great and dominant, a dominant multi-dimensional transshipment hub, we simply don't have the political will, the knowledge, nor the forward-thinking mentality to even do it. What's worse to me is that we coddle and we enable incompetence. We just coddle and enable incompetence. And it's a damn shame. Now, folks, in all my years working at the ports, I've seen and experienced some amazingly backward, awkward, nonsensical, and outright laughable events happening here. But I remain hopeful. Our strategic location as a territory with other strategic facilities like the refinery over on St. Croix and that 10,000-foot runway on St. Croix can contribute to making the USVI the premier air and sea cargo transshipment point in the entire Caribbean and points south. Our problem is that we need to get past the mentality that holds us back from greatness. Punk. The price of nonconformance. There's just a sheer lack of any vision for the future. In the aftermath of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, our government is seeking very large sums of money to rebuild. I've heard 5.5 billion. I've heard 7.5 billion. I've even heard about Crazy Bernie's plan to throw even more billions at us and Puerto Rico, like 146 billion, of which roughly 27 billion is just for infrastructure. Guess what? Ports are infrastructure. Anyway, even if that long shot of a proposal were to see the light of day, all of them are long shots as far as I'm concerned, much of it would be in the form of loans. And we've already shown that we cannot repay the debt that we already have. And we're losing population. Population equates to tax base. People are leaving because they can't find decent jobs, and those are taxpayers that are leaving the territory. So what we need to do is we need to come up with a plan that brings taxpayers to the territory, brings skilled, good-paying jobs and careers to the territory. We need to have a plan for that. It needs to be part of us rebuilding. We need to start thinking outside of the box, but we're not. Okay? We're not. So again, what we need is a plan for generating and sustaining revenue and upgrading the cargo ports and the airports for that matter. And it needs to be an essential part of the effort to rebuild so we can have a shot at real prosperity and paying our bills. But that's just me, folks. That's just me. But it's food for thought. I'm out.